So as you can see here on your screen, this is a live look at what's going on in Maine. ICE agents surrounded a car and repeatedly ordered the driver to get out. Then seconds later, we're told they heard gunshots.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
So, as we predicted many times, Democrats would try to revive their old practices of anti-ICE terrorism and political violence as the midterms drew closer. And that is exactly what is now happening. They're basically looking around and realizing, oh, shoot, Democrats are kind of on the back foot right now. Gas prices are coming down. The vibes and mood of the country is ecstatic following the 250th and the World Cup and all of these good vibes. Politics in general are honestly kind of boring and slow right now, which may not be good, for example, for my bottom line, but is good for the country, right? Because it maybe correlates to better vibes. People aren't so angry and divided and pissed off all the time. And this summer, that is sort of the feeling, right? America's just having a good time. So what do Democrats sit there and do? Shoot, they're not angry and miserable about everything. Hey, let's try to drive cars at ICE agents and stage propaganda moments that we can use to maybe revive something we had earlier in this year. And that is exactly what is now taking place. Because, of course, last week you had the whole situation where illegal aliens were trying to ram into ICE with their vehicles, causing and ending in ICE-involved shootings. And now we just got the same situation in Maine, where authorities are saying that a person reportedly tried to run over an ICE agent that prompted the agent to fire in self-defense. And while it is a classified police scene still, right, early investigation, these signs do seem to indicate that is exactly what happened, especially given the angle of the shot. But of course, that has not stopped a bunch of leftists on cue. Not sure how they managed to organize or mobilize so quickly here, right? Isn't that sort of interesting? Just happened a few hours ago, and we already have protesters over in Susan Collins's office trying to storm it. Now, I was, of course, told that this is the definition of insurrection, right? You're not allowed to break into where politicians basically work and forcibly try to enter and protest inside. So that's insurrection. I look forward to these people being charged with, terrorism and rebellion and sedition against the United States and all of those things. Haha, funny joke. But still, nonetheless, let's bring you this story out of Maine where we have, actually, what I'll also even further point out about this, let's not forget what just happened. The Democrats had Graham Platner drop out of the race. They don't have a candidate. They're kind of in a flailing position right now. So, hey, how do we mobilize and unify the left-wing base against Susan Collins? How do we, by the way, make the angry, crazy communists forget that the Democrat Party, the DNC, just screwed them and basically did a political assassination or character assassination, I guess I should say, against our guy that we voted for in the primary? Hey, let's, make them go protest that Susan Collins over ICE or something. Let's talk about all of it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, so here is the headline of today. Authorities say a person reportedly tried to run over an ICE agent in Maine, prompting the agent to fire in self-defense. One person ended up being killed. Now, while we don't have a bunch of details, one thing that someone managed to basically capture from the crime scene and leftists are trying to use as some type of, oh, what? This is so bad, but actually it proves, or at least it doesn't prove, but it indicates strongly that that's exactly what happened here. As you can see, so this image from today's ICE-involved shooting shows bullet holes in the vehicle's window. The image was sent to me by someone on the ground before police had covered up the scene. Except here's the thing. The bullet holes are not just in a window. You can see here they are in the windshield. In fact, look at the angle of that, right? Directly, basically, a straight line from where this ICE agent had to have been firing to the driver, who allegedly here is, they didn't report it to be an illegal alien, so we're to assume some type of left-wing political terrorist. If the narrative that the left is going to try to push here, like they did with Renee Good, even though it was clear what happened there as well, but, if they're going to try to say, oh, he was just driving away, or the ICE agent wasn't in danger or something, the car wasn't coming right for him, The evidence they're currently trying to share from the scene actually directly contradicts that, because you notice, right, straight line, in order to take a shot like that, the ICE agent had to have been standing in front of the car. Now, you could, of course, try to draw conspiracy theories and say that, oh, well, the car was just stationary in place and the ICE agent shot in front of it or something, fine. But you notice, again, they're saying it's like the vehicle's window, which is to indicate, oh, maybe the car was driving away and they're just shooting aimlessly. Not true here, right? And you also do notice, by the way, damage on the front of the car. That also probably indicates that there was something violent here going on. Now, maybe that happened after the fact, but still, right? An indication potentially that the driver was going erratically. And as we established, by the way, when we were, of course, speaking about Renee Good, you know, a car absolutely can be a deadly weapon. And some people have tried to argue otherwise. Oh, he's only moving at 10 miles an hour. Okay. So getting crushed underneath a SUV, even at low speeds, you know, we've shown actually examples where cars moving rather slow have taken out and taken the lives of police officers. Legally, everywhere a car coming directly at you in the United States generally does fall under, yes, that can be classified as a deadly weapon. And by the way, the whole situation, folks, is very avoidable. If, you know, you're scared of these Nazi Gestapo guys out in the streets or something, you would generally think that if they really are this fascist army, maybe people shouldn't mess with them, right? Maybe not a good idea. Hey, if they're trying to tell you to leave the scene, you should just listen. And then maybe, you know, if you have a moving vehicle, if they're on foot, don't create a scene where they might be in danger, especially forget even trying to drive away. Don't try to drive right into them, you know? Any accountability for actions that these people take? Obviously not. Obviously never the case. And already having very little details as to what happened, as usual. In typical fashion, as I've said, right? Communists basically stage and organize these moments themselves. The leftists do not care. They, you know, in their eyes, actually, even if that's 100% what happened, it happened exactly as the authorities claim and as the, for example, bullet holes do seem to suggest, right? Drove right at, tried to run over an ICE agent, tried to potentially kill this ICE agent. They don't care, and they never do care. This history goes back a long way. It doesn't matter if it's George Floyd, BLM, even some circumstances around, for example, a lot of the earlier stuff from the 60s and 70s, if you know what I mean by that, right? Same thing where, you know, they never really tell the full story of what happened here. They caused it, but that's exactly the point. This for a long time has been the communist agitation strategy, which I guess sort of fits because when we understand a lot of their ideology in itself is this idea of false victimhood, right? And conservatives often point that out. Hey, you make yourself out to be a victim when you're not, right? You're incredibly empowered, but whatever, right? The whole point of leftism is sort of mediocre, sad loser people trying to make more exceptional people feel bad for them. So they say, oh, well, we're being treated unfairly or something like that, even when it's not true. Then it's not much of a stretch to say if their kind of whole brand is victimhood, why would that not also, and by the way, it does translate to these so-called propaganda moments and protest tactics. That's literally what they try to do, right? They try to create this false martyrdom or victimhood. They stage the photos. We've seen this story a million times where you have people literally rioting, literally causing a whole scene, attacking police officers, committing violence, not obeying orders, breaking the law. And then the moment that tear gas or something is deployed, what do they say? You're tear gassing peaceful protesters. Yeah, never showing, right, what led up to the tear gassing, because that is exactly the way these people protest. Perpetual fake victimhood. Even look back to the history of something like, you know, maybe I'm not going to say it, but certain things that have happened on universities, even with protests back in, say, the 60s and 70s, it's kind of a similar story. Especially that one where, for example, students tried to break in and burn down a National Guard armory, and then were told by the history books in school that U.S. soldiers just fired on innocent college students. You know, this stuff goes back a long time. Let me just put it that way. You know, there's a long history of this type of lying basically going on. But nonetheless, in typical fashion, not knowing or not even caring what actually did happen, someone got shot by ICE. Of course, we now have anti-ICE rioters committing yet another January 6th incident at Susan Collins' office over in Maine. Check it out.
17 minutes past the hour right now. Anti-ICE protests outside the office of Senator Susan Collins after a deadly shooting in Maine involving an ICE agent. This is Bedford, where the shooting happened about 25 minutes south of Portland. Our correspondent Alexis McAdams is reporting live here in New York City. She's got the latest details on what is happening there. Alexis?
Hey, Sandra. So as you can see here on your screen, this is a live look at what's going on in Maine. We know federal agents are trying to piece together everything that happened as witnesses tell local media that ICE agents surrounded a car and repeatedly ordered the driver to get out. Then seconds later, we're told they heard gunshots.
So yeah, I obviously look forward to these insurrectionists being thrown in jail for a very long time because, of course, how dare they try to break into a politician's building? That is the equivalent of armed rebellion against the government. They were armed with paper signs and things like that. Yeah. Hey, officer, did you see that? I very much look forward to any politician who gave lip service to the anti-ICE conspiracy theory, right? The immigration deniers, as we'll call them, all being impeached from office. I look forward to dramatic years-long subcommittees and investigations going into, hey, how much did Chuck Schumer and Graham Platner and Hakeem Jeffries, how involved were they in this armed insurrection against our government, right? Obviously, we know that's unlikely to happen because it's a two-tiered system in this country. That's why leftists get away with it. That's why leftists get away with creating these false victimhood moments and then nobody asks questions. But still, nonetheless, you know how this type of stuff goes. Very typical behavior. And let's not forget, by the way, you know, it's honestly sad on many levels what these people are sacrificing themselves to defend, right? Because that's ultimately what's going on here. And we said that about Minneapolis as well. Crazy Democrat politicians like Tim Walz are so desperate for propaganda moments that they're encouraging this type of stuff. And that's the thing, right? So at what point are they going to be accused of insurrection here when if these people are engaging in the Democrat definition of insurrection and the media institutional definition apparently now of insurrection, and they're cheering it on, hey, get in these politicians' face, hey, go protest against ICE and all that stuff, when that accountability or the enforcement of equal standards is going to come. But we know it's not, right? No, it's not, because it's a two-tiered system. But still, the idea, do not forget this, Democrat politicians are sacrificing their voters. They're knowingly putting their voters in danger and encouraging them to do stuff like this, right? When Renee Good became a martyr, when Alex Preddy became a martyr for left-wing causes, and Democrat politicians are going out there praising them, saying they were in the right, they were correct people, what message is that sending? It's saying, hey, these are the good guys, you should be like this. So why is it then surprising that we now have way more people trying to ram into ICE agents with their vehicles? Like Renee Good. If Renee Good's your hero, right, then that should equate. Should it surprise anyone if people show up with guns at in front of ICE agents and then cause problems and then resist arrest and just create a very dangerous situation where obviously things can happen like Alex Preddy? Well, Alex Preddy was a good guy, right? He's our hero. He's our martyr. Okay, so you're encouraging this to happen more. And let's not forget, they're doing all of this to defend what? The illegal alien invasion of all of their states, obviously all of this country, but especially over in Maine. Because you may ask yourself, Maine, isn't that like the whitest state in America? What are we talking about? Since when do illegal aliens live in Maine? You'd be surprised. As a matter of fact, I immediately drew my memory back to the reporting I recall about this during the Biden years. And let's actually show that to you here of the crazy situation where the Biden admin is literally giving out free Section 8 housing vouchers. And it's something even beyond Section 8, right? But free housing, and they say they're not receiving government benefits. Free housing to a bunch of illegals, oftentimes not even from Mexico. We're talking about people from Haiti, people from Africa, all of this stuff. Remember Springfield, Ohio, that whole situation? It was actually a very similar thing over in Maine. So that should add, honestly, to the ridiculousness of this. It's not only that crazy, deranged people who probably belong in mental institutions are instead out in the streets trying to sacrifice themselves to, cause problems and threaten the lives of ICE agents and all of those things. But also, do not forget the supposedly noble cause that these people are trying to defend, that these people are constantly virtue signaling about, talking about empathy and all of that. Here is the actual face of it.
How much is rent here?
Free. 2 years.
After 2 years, we have to pay the rent.
All right, y'all, this is Savannah Hernandez in Brunswick, Maine, reporting to you from the apartments where migrants are getting their rent paid for up to 2 years. Now, I wanted to give you guys a first inside look at these units. The migrants shared with us that they come furnished, so they have a flat screen TV in there, couches, tables and chairs, a bed. We also asked them as well, hey, are you paying utilities here? They shared with us that nope, they do not have a water bill, they do not have an electricity bill.
And what about the light and the water?
Everything is good. We don't pay anything.
Now, I wanted to focus in on this area of Maine because there is a housing crisis going on currently for residents, and these buildings were initially created for Maine residents, but then it was decided that homeless migrants would be living here.
And I know it's been a long time, but this might jog your memory. Let's not forget, anyone remember that FEMA was the agency that was paying for this? That's right. FEMA was funding free luxury apartments for illegal aliens across the country. Coming on the same year, do you remember where Mayorkas came out and said that they were basically out of money for hurricane season? So literally, right? Not making this up. America, you wonder why, by the way, for example, the response to Helene and a lot of that stuff under Biden was such a disaster. Anyone remember North Carolina? Was not a conspiracy theory, actually, because they kept on giving free housing out to illegal aliens. Combine that with the fact Maine was dealing with, and still probably is dealing with, an affordability crisis because of this. Finally, government studies have came out. Did you hear about this? And admitted, yes, a huge contributing factor, actually the contributing factor to the housing affordability crisis in this country is migration driven, which is to say, arguably the primary reason, actually, young people cannot afford a home and why costs have gone up so much is because of this mass migration. And do not forget, tying this all together, that is the cause that these Maine libtards are fighting right now in Susan Collins' office to defend, and that deranged lunatics are even trying to sacrifice their lives to defend. That is what they are defending. Taxpayer funded, completely free for the illegal, luxury apartments for illegals that were designed as affordable public housing Section 8 type of programs meant to go to American citizens. Libtards are literally saying, I'm going to sacrifice myself so that I ensure this housing that was paid for by American taxpayers, supposed to go to the supposedly downtrodden Americans we are fighting for, go to third world migrants who shouldn't even be in this country and are literally just illegals taking advantage of the system, not working, not paying taxes. 2 years of free housing while we have homeless veterans on the streets. Further, they are saying, and especially as it pertains to Maine and this FEMA housing project, right? We are going to sacrifice ourselves so that way Americans can't afford homes because illegal aliens and mass migration is driving it up. That's a cause we find virtuous. We're going to go here and defend that. And by the way, we're going to sacrifice ourselves so that Americans get left behind if their house gets destroyed in a hurricane. So that way we can fight for the noble cause of public housing and luxury apartments, completely expenses paid for some illegal alien from the Congo who is entirely just taking advantage of this situation for financial gain. That's what the supposed, like, these are the good guys, right? Right side of history. According to them, that's the right side of history. How deranged and genuinely psychotic when you actually think about that, right? Break that down, digest it. It's not just that, oh, they're crazy people who are causing danger to their own lives for this political cause. Don't also ignore, right? That is their political cause. This right here, what you see on your screen, this was Maine. This is Maine in 2024. This is the reason why ICE has to operate in Maine, a state where you would not expect ICE really to be. And libtards are saying, we are defending that. We stand for that. Don't forget that when the midterms come up, by the way, and you're going to hear all this anti-ICE dribble and all the, oh, well, can you believe what they're doing? Actually, I can believe what they're doing. I can't believe what you're doing. I can't believe that you're sitting here and literally sacrificing yourself to obstruct the enforcement of saying that this should not be happening in America, in this country, right? But obviously, we're dealing with crazy open borders communists here. What else is to be expected? That said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below, guys. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.